Hello and welcome to this week's Aiding Your Game, our web series where we talk about all things RPGs. While we focus on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the items we talk about can be used in any RPG and RPG setting. Today we're going to be talking about challenging characters and how to make them more palatable at the table. Now, sometimes characters created by players can be over the top and antagonistic. And with RPGs designed to be played with multiple people telling collaborative stories around a gaming table, these types of character tropes can be a very big detriment to playing, maintaining, and enjoying RPGs around the table. And while these types of characters are not exclusive to Dungeons & Dragons players, you do see lots of memes talking about these types of characters, which tells you how proliferative they are in the gaming community. In this video, we're going to talk about how to make the most cringe characters palatable at the table. Now, before we jump into the video, make sure you go down and hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell if you don't mind receiving the notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. Leave a comment down below so that we can help create new content that you'll enjoy. And be sure to share this video with friends who are also into the RPG. It's what my character would do. The first line of defense of people who create characters that are not supportive of a party dynamic. Before we jump into the characters themselves, one thing that I really want to stress is that strong, good communication can help alleviate this ever coming up. If you're creating a character for a campaign, make sure you understand from your GM what that campaign is and who the party is. If, for instance, you're going to be playing a heroic, high fantasy campaign, it doesn't make a lot of sense to build a character that is not heroic and worthy of high fantasy. While player agency is definitely important and you should be able to build characters that you'll enjoy playing, remember, you're playing with others. And by playing with others, you already have to have some type of a social contract that you're going to play with others well. With that being said, I don't get to play as often as I GM. However, I still build a lot of characters. I do it for a couple of reasons, primarily so I can understand different class and race combinations, what the feats are, how I can best utilize the types of characters and races and classes to meld into my games very well. I want the players, in the choices that they make for race and class combinations, to be able to integrate with my stories and my campaigns really well and almost effortlessly. So I build a lot of characters, even when I don't get to play them. This does mean when I do get to play, I have a plethora of characters to choose from. Now, as I receive information from the GM, as well as the other players that I'll be meeting at the table, this allows me to pick and choose which character that I've created out of the hundreds is best going to meet my wants in participating at that table. I highly recommend that you do the same. As a player, don't hesitate to build up a bunch of different characters. And while you may have one that you keep wanting to play, it may not be the right character for every adventure that gets presented to you as an option to play. Build a lot of characters, and then that gives you an opportunity to explore different adventuring sessions, different GM styles, different adventures, and participate greater in the hobby with different experiences of your own. But with that being said, we are here to talk about cringe-worthy character concepts. And while I haven't ranked these types of characters, I have seen them played at tables. I have had to play with players who have built these types of characters. And this is just my opinions and my thoughts on how to make one of those cringe characters more playable at the table, not just for yourself, but for your table mates and your GM as well. If your overall goal is to make an antagonistic character that's going to piss off the other players and GM, I would advise you to be very upfront about that and let everybody know so that they have the choice whether or not they want to play with you. And as I mentioned, this list is not exhaustive. These are just some of the most talked about, most memed, and possibly the most hated character concepts by both other players as well as GMs. And again, all of this is my opinion, so you're free to take it with a grain of salt. Yes, the Horny Bard, who wants to seduce and is driven by lust, and their entire purpose is to use their charisma to get out of everything and be the most prolific breeder in the realms. Horny Bards really are in it for themselves, in my opinion. I don't think there is a huge opportunity for them to really bring a strong dynamic to the group aside of getting out of troubles by trying to use seduction and wily ways. Horny Bards could be a little bit deeper if you look at the motivations of what makes them a horny bard, and are they looking to improve themselves as a person in their character. If you're insisting on building a horny bard type character, I really advise you to think about what drove them to be that, and what are their goals. Is it just notching up the bedpost or their belt? Is it just utilizing ways that they've learned to be seductive and charismatic for some type of personal growth? Is it something that they lacked in their childhood that they're trying to compensate for? By having opportunities of growth and development of the character, that both explains why they are the way they are and how they can evolve and change as a person in the story, could allow for some type of better opportunity for RP between the different characters in the adventuring party, as well as the gaming world. And if you're building that type of character, it may be something where your GM, as long as they understand what the motivations and goals and drives are, could use that in game as they're working on building out the story. Perhaps the king of the realm wants to use that type of a character to go and seduce and lure a different kingdom's heir, or some type of a way that could cause conflict between the two and get the second kingdom under their control and rule. There's all different types of ways to utilize that type of character for a GM who's crafty. But if you're creating the character, don't make it one-dimensional. Any type of character needs to have more than one dimension, and by putting in flaws and reasons behind choosing that type of personality gives you as the player an opportunity to explore deeper themes. Maybe you're looking for some type of opportunity to talk about different societal norms, or maybe you want to challenge some of the societal norms that are constantly built into the game worlds that GMs create. All of that's fine, but again, make sure you're communicative with your GM as well as with the other players, so that the spotlight isn't only on you and your shortcomings. Really, the Horny Bard is so one-dimensional, there isn't a whole lot further to talk about on that one, in my opinion. The Lone Wolf is also one that kind of perplexes me a little bit. And while I have to admit, in my younger time, I have played that lone wolf type of character and really wanted to utilize that kind of hermit background, or be that almost doesn't trust anybody. The lone wolf character, there are a lot of different traits that define what makes that lone wolf character so edgy. Again, by making sure that you're thinking about what makes them a lone wolf, looking at ways to integrate them into a party dynamic could bear a lot more fruit for long-term play. For instance, if the character's entire family was decimated by a raiding band of a horde cult, building in that some of the other characters that are going to be joining your character at the table could help connect them to not only their past, but build them into a protective nature. Perhaps the cleric reminds them of their younger brother, or the wizard reminds them of their mother. Make sure as you're building that character to define some of those parts and pieces of the backstory that can tie into the group dynamic. This will make your edgelord a lot less edgy. However, it provides a good opportunity for RP to really take a front stand in your character's journey with a party. Why would someone who always wants to be alone and does not want any type of connection travel with others? Answering that question is key to make your lone wolf part of a pack. Also commonly used with that lone wolf theme is the character who doesn't trust anybody. They think everybody is out to get them or ruin something for them or talks through lies and deception. There's no opportunity for them to trust. Why then would they spend nights with strangers traversing the realms? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So looking at opportunities to, again, show character growth and development while you're creating that lone wolf doesn't trust anybody type of character is a great opportunity to start breaking down walls and opening the doors for in-character development. For instance, one way that they can start to trust a different PC is maybe they cook each and every time without complaint. As your party is adventuring, whoever is cooking and constantly making sure that the party is fed and well rationed and everything, there's a bridge there for them to start trusting that person more and more. They're always cooking, they don't complain about it, they do it without ask, and there's an opportunity for them to start earning that respect and starting to trust that person. Maybe it's something where if they see someone do a good deed without being asked, for elderly people, they'll start to trust more and more. Could be they need to see 3 kind acts towards elderly people before they start trusting. And in the course of your adventures, as that party as a whole begins to make sure that elderly people in villages that they visit not only have food and shelter, but protection that they need from whether it's elements or others in the community persecuting them, whatever the case may be. Start thinking of ways that what will build trust for that character who is untrusting. What's it going to take to happen for them to start trusting the others? Maybe it's charging into battle. Maybe it's saving lives. Maybe it's going off and stealing from the rich to give to the poor. Build in those types of mechanics so that your GM can start setting the stage for your party to come together in a trusting and supportive manner. The player versus player thief. This one, there is always that explanation of that's what my character would do. This one has boggled my mind probably longer than some of the others. But if you're adventuring with a group of other adventurers and you may need their support to survive an adventure or be able to pass some type of a puzzle or anything, it doesn't make sense for me on why there is player versus player theft or anything like that. As an adventuring group, it should be a group dynamic. Now we see fun ways of this happening in different types of games and storytelling. And however, as you're sitting at the table, one thing that I would challenge you to do if you want to make this type of a character is look at opportunities to put that kind of on its ear. Instead of just stealing from your companions, imagine if you wanted to have that kleptomaniac not only steal something from a companion, but then mark it and return it, all without being caught. Can you imagine your rogue trying to steal the paladin's backup weapon, their dagger or their mace, and in the handle carve out a symbol of fun, or put something like the other player character's initials plus an NPC's initials sitting in a tree, and then sneak it back. That's the goal, is to sneak it back without them noticing. Tropes like this could be fun to explore because as you're doing it, it could be fun to see how long the characters note that these types of shenanigans are going on, and then ultimately it does not hamper their ability to perform in-game. It doesn't take away their player agency, and it doesn't hamper the character class or race. It's a fun dynamic that could lead to a lot of RP and ultimately some good fun at the table for all involved, not just the perpetrator of the theft. being evil for evil's sake. So you have a dark desire to be an evil character, and you're going off to adventure to partake in your evil plans and evil masterminds. And while it's very true, the evil types could manipulate the party and utilize them to their ends. Again, if you're not upfront with your GM on this type of character, this could cause a lot of dynamic challenges with the party members. For instance, if you're an evil character and you've got a lawful good paladin or even a neutral good paladin, there will be conflict. By designing a character that you know is going to give conflict to other party members, without a good opportunity for the why and really thinking through some of those dynamics, are you really bringing something for the group to positively interact with in a fun environment? What's fun for you may not be fun for other characters. This type of character may be best to be sidelined until you have a GM who wants to play an evil campaign. They do exist, and with good communication, you could have your GM do those for one-shots or even an ongoing campaign. Picking the right tool for the right situation is super important. Maybe your evil for evil's sake character isn't the right character to put into this dynamic. With that being said, to change this up a little bit, perhaps that evil for evil's sake, you want to have a character growth where they learn that the evil in their ways is more harm to them and their communities than being good, and possibly even being neutral. Now, for my games, I don't utilize alignment a whole ton. It's important at the start so I know what the character motivations are, but I let in-game actions dictate kind of how the alignments are represented by the players. But just because I have someone who wants to play an evil character, I make it very clear to them at the beginning that my campaigns that I run generally see the PCs as the heroes who are going to be good in nature. They are going to serve a greater good, whether that's a greater good to the communities, a greater good to deities, or a greater good to the realms as a whole. My campaigns, generally speaking, are all good. And I really want the players to understand that if they're building evil characters, there will be consequences to their actions. So be aware of that and think about how an evil character, if that's what you're intent on playing, is going to utilize good and possibly have some type of character development along the way so they're not hampering the other elements of a good alignment game. But again, don't hesitate to pocket that character and look for an opportunity to play them in an evil campaign. They may have more opportunity to really shine their brightest then. The Murder Hobo. Now, this is one that I've had to GM a lot, probably more than all of the others, and is definitely a challenge because as I'm setting up different types of story elements, whether it's through NPCs or different types of just environmental elements, a murder hobo is going to murder just for fun. They don't care that a farmer could have some type of information. They'll kill that farmer NPC just because it's a kill. Oftentimes, murder hobos don't allow enough information to be spread out to the characters so that they can progress in a good storytelling direction. A lot of times when you have murder hobos in your party, you have to do a lot more railroading because they're so hell-bent on killing everything and everyone in sight that there's less gathering of information. When they're gathering information, it's usually under some type of intimidation or threat of violence and death, and then they kill just to be able to get that kill, and they leave a bloody swath across the realms. Murder hobos, if you're building a character, again, thinking of development-wise, knowing what drove them to be that murder hobo, and then what are opportunities for them to stop being that murder hobo. Perhaps it's something that they're on this killing streak because they don't trust anybody, or a different adventuring party member constantly stole from them, so they've just started to kill anyone and everything. Leave some room to have interactions and opportunities for that to change. Maybe it's when they see a young child who reminds them of a childhood crush, they'll suddenly realize the murder that they're inflicting on the realms was what their trigger was to start going on this murdering rampage on the realms. That type of self-discovery should be an opportunity for you to show character growth and development and ultimately become something more than what you started as. Anytime you're building a character, it's always hard to know how that character is going to end up, because through gameplay and through the opportunities we get to play with others at the table, a lot of impact happens to our characters from the GM, from the other players, from the characters, from the environments that we send them to. Building one-dimensional characters is never the key. While I definitely recommend starting characters and thinking about their personalities and backstories, thinking about opportunities for them to grow and develop and change is also super important. Add those types of notes into your introduction to your campaign with your GM. Make sure you're talking about some of those parts and pieces with your GM as well as with other players. RPGs as a whole are more of a team sport, in my opinion. They're not designed for one-on-one. That type of play is great for different types of video games and everything, but role-playing at its core is really designed for groups of people to gather and collaboratively tell stories that everyone has an impact on, giving us an opportunity to escape and have fantastic adventures that we normally can't do in our regular lives. Creating characters that are able and willing to sacrifice and grow and develop for the greater good, as well as inhibiting the best of what we are. If you're thinking about having a character creation that fits one of these stereotypes, I strongly urge you to think about the impacts that they'll have on the party dynamic, on the GM's environment, and both the players and GM in the long run. Remember, we're all in this to build a community of support, trust, and fun. Make sure if you're building characters who have those types of one-dimensional challenges and are more antagonistic, how can you start at the beginning of character creation to make them grow and develop to be more fun for the others who you're going to be playing with? Until next week, if you think of other character class or races or something that you feel is cringe, leave a comment down below, and I'd love to give you my input and insight on how to make those cringe characters less cringy and more welcome at more tables in your community. I hope you enjoyed that video. Here's a link to another video that you may enjoy. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button to help us grow. If you'd like to support us, make sure you check out the description of the video with some links and leave a comment to let us know, where will your adventures take you?